Podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com. Podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
So I have a friend of mine from back in the day that decided to come on the show and call me out on my shit.
We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Welcome to the program. King of Podcasts here with you. Thanks for listening in. Checking out the show wherever you find it, whether it's on the YouTube channel or Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, and the like. So we're going to talk about dating relationships. This is basically a very lighthearted debate. Now, a friend of mine, I'm going to be calling Mark for the program. I've known for almost 20 years. We were coworkers at one point, and we kind of dabbled along, and, we talked about personal, when it comes to dating relationships, things like that. It was in our experience and what we worked on together, give us a chance to go and just be lax and talk about it. We had kind of a bullpen type atmosphere. So we chatted, we had a few other people in the office. We would just go ahead and talk about stuff. And there wasn't that much that was off limits. But for this particular episode, I'm going to talk about the area where he has a different mindset of dating relationships than I do. And, we might agree on some things. I would imagine maybe something like that will happen. But the idea is that people know, if you listen to this program long enough, you know what my opinions are. But yeah, let me have somebody on that'll have a more of a clean palate that might not feel so bitter or jilted or frustrated like I have been over the years. So, Mark, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. It's good to go and catch up. So, you're overseas, and you've been overseas for more than a decade. And what can you tell me real quick just about your own experience, your encounters with women, and how deep and, involved have you been, and your experiences, what that you're able to go and share?
I think I've lived overseas 14, 15 years out of my life. I've dated many different cultures. Yeah, people are the same. I mean, there's cultural differences in different areas of the world, but in general, in my opinion, people are people everywhere.
But do you ever notice a difference? Because I've known you before social media was a thing. It had not started yet. But, that I have said for years has made a significant impact. So for me, I'm of the opinion where, it's screwed things up. We're kind of fucked over in terms of America, because now we're at the point where TikTok has created, or Instagram, we have women that can feel objectified. They can live the life they want. There's already been a feminist mindset that's been around for a long time where, women want to be empowered and independent, which is, I understand to a point. But we're at a point now where it's the expectations, I think, are got to the point of being delusional for American women. I'm going to say that. I know it's not the same for other countries. I guess they just understand it better. But the difference between what you experienced in America versus what you've experienced now anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with social media, right? Because I think I generally agree with you that social media has not helped. I think if you go on social media, even as a guy, you'll see pictures of dudes with six packs. You go to the movies and you watch a movie and these dudes all have six packs. Even as a guy, that makes you feel pretty shitty about yourself.
True.
But as a woman, it's heightened, right? So I think it does make people feel more insecure about yourself. I think you have to remember that most of this stuff, like you've said a million times, it's all fake. It's all people are just putting out what they want people to think their lives are like. And then behind the scenes, they're just, they're sitting on a couch eating pizza just like the rest of us, right? So yeah, I think social media has definitely had an impact. And it also, if we talk about the dating apps, right, which I know that you've been on them, I've been on them a bunch. Dating apps, nobody likes being on dating apps, right? They're on dating apps out of necessity.
But there was a point where we didn't have, and I remember a time when we didn't have it, and it was like, it was always ways, because there's something about women, I feel like, that they do want to have some barriers to entry, that they want to have some boundaries, not in terms of the boundaries they put on you when you get together with them, but there's boundaries before you get to meet them. So it's always about, well, they meet me let's meet in a club, but you got to go past the cover, pay for drinks. There's a little bit of barrier to entry to get close and to, get to go and interact. They want to put that in front. Or if they're around friends, you got to get around the friends to get to them. But it's the part where we all thought the dating apps were going to be an easier point to entry. But the truth is it's gotten worse. Like the thing is now we have paywalls in a lot of different ways. And that's the thing that I think has increased more and more. I mean, now we're at the days where, look, I do Uber driving quite a bit. And I know one of the things that we do now compared to years ago, look, I remember when I used to go to a club and a cover was not even a cover, or maybe like $5, $10 you pay. And then the drinks were cheap. And, ladies' night, you get as many ladies as you can get to the door. And there was like the quote of, the ratio of women to men was always like, there were a lot more women available because of how these nightclubs would do. Now, you have women that go to the strip clubs and making those the nightclubs. And what do the guys have to go through? Well, we have to go ahead and pay for 2-drink-1 minimum, parking, access into the club, and we also have to, take care of the entertainment and the assumption that we're there to go and see the entertainers when we're actually there to go and meet the women. So it's like there's even more barriers than ever before. And then, because of the fact that there's so many places to go, especially where I'm at here in South Florida, you can go all these places that are very bougie, very trendy. And because social media's created that, social media dating apps, there's all these barriers, boundaries, and more things of delusion that have made it harder just to go ahead and meet somebody and just enjoy each other's company.
I grew up in South Florida just like you.
Yeah.
And I remember I left South Florida because I didn't love, it felt very materialistic and very shallow in some places. And obviously there's exceptions, right? Well, there's lovely people in South Florida that I know. You being one of them, right?
Thank you.
So there are good things that come out of these cities. I think a lot of times it's very easy to get caught up in that scene, and you have to really work hard against it and say, hey, you know what? This is not my vibe. I'm going to go find something that I like to do. And then if you do that, you tend to meet the people that are more aligned with you, right? So yes, you can pay the cover and go to the club and buy drinks and do that whole scene. But honestly, if that's not what you're into, then find a hobby, right? Find a hobby that's cheap, or at least if it's a hobby that you enjoy, you don't mind paying for, and then you'll meet somebody with similar interests there. I think that's the part that people used to do more often.
Oh yeah.
But now with apps, it's really easy to get that dopamine hit with just a swipe.
And now there's a point where what you see in the news, you see there are certain things now where this amplifying of men being creepy or being like, the women feel like they need to feel that they're in danger, that any kind of interaction with somebody. I mean, we're now at the point where, look, technology's changed everything. Anybody has AirPods or earbuds on, yeah, they're trying to make sure you're not being talked to. Like you're trying to isolate yourself. People are not doing that by accident, but you can just see some of that too. But if I go out people walking, one of the things I'll tell you with South Florida, especially with Miami down there now, it was just South Beach was very trendy, touristy. But now we're getting to the point where, because of what COVID happened and, New Yorkers and other people coming down here, there's so much being built down here. And like the trendiness and the clout chasing, status seeking stuff is amplified now to 1,000,000 because they're building all these big bougie condos out there. What you got to be driving, how you got to look now is so fake and so, veneer. It's like there's not even worth going to that anymore. But that's the part. Where do you find people that just go do everyday things? Because, even if you want to go, like, okay, the gym would be a great example, but part of it is now you have people that say, well, they're going to have, I want to go ahead and take pictures of myself working out or doing this, or there's a creep factor if supposedly a guy is looking at a girl working out in the gym, and it's like, anything now that guys try to do, there's been created this apprehension, this, not a fear, but it's just like, we're not trying to ruffle anybody's feathers. I think it's gotten to the point now where guys, we don't even try to approach anymore because it's like, we don't even want to worry about the reaction that we get. It's not like we would get a rejection anymore. We're going to get something much more severe.
You've probably heard this, like they used to say the grocery store was this place to pick up people, right? Because everybody was going to the grocery store and that's where you meet somebody to date. But then if you think about it, now every time I go to the grocery store, I got to get dressed up. I got to worry about people coming to talk to me. I'm just there to like buy cereal at 2 a.m. Leave me alone. I just want to go in there and get my stuff. So I think Yes, I agree with you. I think there is a line that it is hard as a man sometimes to approach a woman because you don't want to seem like a creep. You don't want to feel like you're encroaching. Sometimes if somebody at the gym, they don't want somebody to come hit on them. They just want to be at the gym, right? So I think it's about reading signals, right? If somebody's wearing big headphones and a hat, that's a signal at the gym to leave me alone. Like, I'm here to work out. That's why people flock to the apps, right? Because it's a safe space. You know, everybody there is to date. Nobody there is just there not to date, right? Everybody there is using the app to find somebody. So that's why people go to the apps. It's also much easier to get rejected on an app, right? Because face-to-face rejection really sucks. But getting rejected on an app or getting ghosted, who cares? It happens 3 times.
Off.
You know.
But now here's the thing. I got to tell you, over the years, and you've heard my program enough, which is why we prompted this conversation. Okay, because I've done more than my time of dating apps where the other thing too is that now, even if you talk to a girl on a dating app, and if they don't like what you say, and it's not, and you don't have to be anything derogatory, they can give you a reason to be reported on and blocked. But not even like blocked, they can actually get you thrown off the app, no matter if you're a paid subscriber or not. I've had that happen to me a bunch of times. To the point I've actually been on most of the major dating apps right now because there have been girls that just didn't like what I said. Honestly, it's just
do you remember
what
you said?
Huh?
Do you remember what you said, or what was the line? Was it like too sexual? Was it too
nothing
direct?
Sexual. I don't think it was anything sexual. No, it's just that, well, because if I wanted to go approach, I never necessarily wrote like the same message to every girl. So it's like they might have thought it was spam because I would just kind of like copy and paste the same message just to see. It was like a test question. Okay, are you going to respond back if I say this? And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So that always kind of gave me a part. And then, if there was anything that was said about like, if a woman tried to ask me for something, money or something in return, and then they got upset, then that was also another reason to like blocking me because they'll take the woman's word for it before me. Things like that. But now that's where I said, well, if that's going to be like that, and if we're getting more women that are like getting, maybe not so much transactional, but obviously materials are much more important. It's like, what do you provide to me? What do you provide to this possible relationship? It's not love anymore. Love is not even, there's the value of that is no longer counting. So that's the part where I started going into dabbling into the sugar daddy sites because I noticed, first of all, I've done enough where I tried to date women of my age or maybe a little bit older at one point because that's how it was. 20s, 30s, maybe go after somebody a little bit older. Maybe that they might have a second chance at love. They might have gone through divorce or have kids and whatever. But anybody who's on those dating apps, if they're older, probably have gone through their own issues of trauma or kind of emotional suffering that, they have never overcome. And they're not necessarily ready to be back on the dating scene anyway, but they're on the apps because it's an entry. It's a way to get in. But never had any experience where like I felt like anything good. Plus, so much also of like trying to break through a barrier when you're talking about a woman that's been on those apps and like they're on there chronically. And I mean, I'll tell you this, I don't know if you've seen this too, but on dating apps, I'll see some of the same women, exactly the same women with the same pictures on those with their profiles on there. And I was like, well, I know they're in the same boat that I am. I'm not going after them. I know that they're damaged. So on the sugar daddy sites, one thing you do know is that, like I said, about 30% of the women that are on there, first of all, a lot of young, beautiful women there. That's the one thing I got to tell you is that on those sites, like a Seeking or Sugar Babies and all these other sites, number one, we know that the guys have to pay a little bit higher pay to get in there because they're not charging $30 a month. It's more like $75 or $100 now for Seeking. But what you're going to meet on there is a lot of girls that are local, or if you're willing to go and meet girls that are like, outside of the state, but there's hundreds of thousands, a lot of college girls, because their deal is they make it where, they don't have to pay anything to get in there, or there's like a very discounted rate for a woman to go on there. So it works out that way. And I've met a lot of nice girls just talking, interacting on there. 30% are about transactional. They're like, they're basically no more different than, a girl off the street or like an OnlyFans model. That's who they are. The 70%, it's like, yeah, they want a guy that'll like kind of, take care of them a little bit. Oh, can you help me out with a bill here and there, or, pay for my rent, or, pay off my car, or all these kind of things. Like, that's, which I guess that's reasonable now. Like if I wanted to, if I was willing to go and spend that kind of money on a woman, but like I could do that, but I don't get anything in return for that. I'm just spending. Because, I mean, I haven't found a girl, which is my deal, that ever gave me the level of appreciation or love that I feel like I give. Like an equal sense of mutual. I never felt that. And so why am I going to go and invest where I think it's not going to go anywhere?
I'm going to ask you some questions now. What kind of love do you feel like you give? Let's say you're in a relationship when you dated somebody. How do you show affection? How do you show appreciation to that person?
Well, I'm very touchy. I'm very intimate. I like to be intimate. I like to be affectionate. And I feel like I'm a good listener. I don't necessarily share a lot of myself unless, like really it's just like, because I don't feel like I'm making myself to be important. If anyone wants to ask something about me, I'm an open book. But I'm always at the starting point. It's always like, let me ask about you. I feel like all I'm doing is I'm constantly trying to just like get into knowing the girl more, analyzing her. Because I'll analyze first. I'm willing to admit that. Because I'm trying to get to where I know her to where she can go and drop her barrier. I feel like that's all I'm doing in the initial part is trying to drop the barrier. And, I don't feel like waiting, and I'm also trying to go and break that stigma that everyone thinks, oh, I'm here for sex. But it's not that case. It's like, I'm not like I'm that sexually active. So I can go through 3 or 4 dates and then like see what happens. But like for me, that's as far as I'll go. When I've done it before, like, okay, what have I done in 3 or 4 dates? What have I gotten out of this? I mean, I might not get a kiss from a girl, or I might not get a hug or whatever. It's like, all right, so I feel like I can, well, because I haven't had it so much, I feel like I love harder. That I'm more passionate.
That makes sense. But so when you say, okay, so now we know what you give, right? How you give love. Now, what do you want back in return, right? Because it's not so much like I do this for you, you do this for me, right? This is not what you want in a partnership. You want somebody who complements you. So what are you looking for the type of love that you want? Do you want affection? Do you want somebody to tell you how much they appreciate you? Do you want gifts? Do there's the love languages, right? Which you've talked about before.
Yeah. I've written it down quite a bit. And when I think about what I've always told girls when I was interested in getting together, it was always like, I said to girls that I've always been a very submissive, affectionate, people-pleasing woman. And I have a lot of interest in common with someone that I could talk to about anything and everything and share anything and everything with. I want to feel like I could go and just be open to that person. And there's no judgment. Like I can finally be myself, be genuine. And, it's like for me, I feel like I want a girl that just can't live without me, can't think of the idea of not having me in their life. Like I want someone that just feels like, that not that that their world revolves around me, but it's like I'm important to them. And that I've proved myself to such a point that I am important to them.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think when you're dealing with this is the allure of these sugar daddy sites, right? Because when you're on a sugar daddy site, it kind of feels like these women are dependent on you and they need you, right? Because you're buying them stuff, you're giving them money, you're paying their rent, they need you. And it makes you feel good because I'm dependent on this person. But
I never paid any bills. I will say that, first of all. Yeah. The level of money that I ever spent was very minuscule because it really wasn't that. Yeah. It's like, if they were going to ask me for something more, I just would just shut it out. But
yeah, I'm speaking generally here, right?
And this is also going back well before because, if I had found a woman that would just accept me for me, I think I would have just dropped everything for them because that's how it would have been. I was like, that's the kind of relationship I want. It's like, I just see the other guys that they don't appreciate the one they're with. And I think that's the other thing too, is that they're women that you could tell that they're in bad relationships. And I always felt like I could be so much better for her than that guy. But it's like, young women, they're going to go ahead and do what they're going to do. Their choices are going to be, they're going to learn from their mistakes. And that's the part where on this program itself, I'm always trying to go and teach for younger people, for the younger guys like myself, awkward, didn't know what I was doing, that, because I didn't understand any relationships growing up, that I was going to hurt a woman emotionally and probably mentally because, I had some tendencies that were not good because I got upset easily. And it's like if I thought I was getting screwed over or things like that, I was like, I didn't always take the woman's heart into account and how what I would say or do that might affect them. I don't think I never did anything that was, crossing anything bad, but it's the way I spoke, the way I reacted. That was not healthy for me, not healthy for them. So that's the part where I think of all these guys that are like, they don't have fathers in their life. And the same thing for girls. They don't have fathers in their life. Without that family structure, you don't know what's right or wrong. You don't have role models to follow along and find examples of who you're looking for. And I'll just start with the very first barrier, right? The first part. This not even counting the fact if I was going to be in a relationship, I want someone I can bring around to my family. I want someone to bring around my friends. I'll feel comfortable, feel proud, I feel happy to be around. And it's like, I don't think, maybe there were one or two girls that were definitely would have fit that role, but I was young and I didn't know any better. Because, maybe I had a chance to be with 2 or 3 women in my life that were absolutely like, they would have been marriage material. I know one for sure would have been, but it wasn't for me and I wasn't ready for it. And the part was that I didn't expect her to go ahead and stay around for me and wait for me to if any girl would have because that's the other thing. How many guys get that chance to make mistakes and a girl will stick around with them every mistake they make and just they keep holding on to hope? I never got that chance. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, but I think there's 2 things here, right? Being young is all about making mistakes. And I've had the same thing. I had so many relationships where I was not available. I wasn't present. I wasn't a good listener. I wasn't a good partner. I was selfish, but I didn't know any better, right? I was just acting the way that I thought, or not that I thought, but I was just acting in the way that I was. I didn't know any better, and I was shitty. And I think that's part of being young and growing up. You're going to break somebody's heart, by accident. Somebody's going to break your heart by accident. You're going to have these people that enter your life and you think, wow, I could be with this person forever, but it won't work out because you're at a different time in your life or there's different circumstances. So I don't really believe in the whole, the one that got away or.
Oh no, I can't live with regrets. And that's still hard to go in to tamper with because regret, especially been alone for so long, that still sticks around. But the one thing is, I do feel it in this sense. I'll tell you like this, Mark. Because now that things have changed so much, I feel like, damn, I wish I would have just found somebody that I have found and stuck with them. Because now it's impossible. It's gotten really bad. I think I can't rule out that you can't find somebody special in this day and age in America. And I'm talking about America. I know that there's a lot of guys right now, and people can say it's controversial or criticize all you want. But guys, no. We can go to other countries. If we take the time, spend months in a particular place, get to know somebody, live there. I'm one of my best friends that he found a girl that was on OkCupid initially. A Filipina girl was working as a teacher in Thailand. And I remember things were just down and out. He just struggled so bad with girls, worse than I was. And we would just hang out. But one of the things he's would talk to this girl video call 3 times a day. And he felt so good about her and they shared everything together. And then he got to the point where he felt like this is the one. It's he could not see himself with anybody else. He wasn't that kind of made a lot of money either. He was kind of salary kind of not really making much. Took a tax return, a few $1,000s, cashed it in on a ticket to Thailand to go spend a month with her over there. And she had her own place and they spent every hour together, loved it, said, I'm bringing her home to marry me. And now he's brought her here, went through the whole visa process. I was there for his wedding as a witness and they got a daughter together. They're happy. They moved to another part of the state and, everything was good. But for him, I know for a fact he wouldn't have been happy with anyone else because, it's finding somebody that is a traditional homemaker, somebody that wants to build a family, have a life and a love, happiness, all of that. without any kind of drama going on. That sounds wonderful. And I'll tell you, I wasn't the person that was thinking about marriage when I was younger, but, after the fact, I wasn't going to be a father. I don't think that was ever in the cards for me. But now I look at what the guys and girls are doing right now and what they have to work with. I see a lot of young, beautiful women that are single because of what they've been told. And they're not willing to go for the guys that are here because, for whatever reason, they might not have real masculine traits anymore. They might be a little bit more feminine than before. And they're not in that kind of like being with other guys. And like, it's like you're staying at home all the time. You're not going out. You're not going out playing sports. You're not just doing like, just hanging out with the guys or whatever. Staying home, playing video games, watching anime, watching porn, whatever else. And they're not getting out and doing anything. So they're isolated and they have their own delusion. So like both sides are delusional now. And I don't want the young women of right now in America, I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to go and feel like, oh, I don't care about myself anymore. And then they just start going down a path of like, oh, I'm going to get a lot of tattoos. I'm going to change my look. And I'm going to have this mindset where like, I can't be happy anymore. And they just find themselves where they can be prone to danger, prone to like the wrong element, and they're screwed.
Well, I think, yeah, that's tough.
That's what the show's about. That's what the show's all about. And that's why I would never talk about it here in an hour-long setting. It's just that's what I talk about on a regular basis. The tattoo stuff, the what influences that are out there, and where some people feel like it's like that's the role models they follow. It's like things like that. I mean, and the other part is I've always went for girls that I thought were never above my league on purpose. I always went for girls that I thought were going to be more manageable that I can get to. So if I found a girl that was a little bit heavier, or a little bit more, that wouldn't be like desired by everybody. Like I'm not going to go after the ones that every other guy is going to go after. That was on purpose. And I felt like I would have an easier chance of finding a girl that would be closer to what I'm looking for, but didn't happen that way either. And there was never an idea of what girls there are. But the thing is, like, if I knew what I knew now, take me back to freshman year in college. Man, I think I would be doing so well today with these women. And it was like, I would probably find somebody to settle and it would be great. But it's like, I wish I knew what I knew now, but the guys now know less. They've experienced less. And I'm afraid for them. And I don't want it where, it was one point where maybe I felt like, well, I want to have a chance to have these girls. No, I'm at the point now where I want girls, even if I find them beautiful, they don't find themselves beautiful. They don't find themselves wanted or appreciated. And it's because, there's a lot of manipulation. Like from what they see on TV, there's a multi-billion-dollar beauty industry that tells them this is what's called beautiful. And, how much money you have to go and spend to go and look that part. And if you don't look that part, how quickly can a girl get shut down because they gain a little bit of weight or they look a little bit different now and they got a little older? It's all those things. It's like women can't be appreciated for just who they are. And the guys are thought like, well, a girl has to go and look like this and this and this. You go back to the grocery store. There's a reason why we appeal to the girls at the grocery store, because it's like, she's not going to get all dressed up. She's not going to wear like the whatever she's going to go out to the club or the restaurant or whatever with. She's dressed down. She's everyday. It's like, would you want to, I think I like to see a girl that's naturally fresh-faced looking. Like, okay, show me what she looks like out of bed. First thing in the morning. And she's beautiful. And like, that's what I want.
Okay.
But
so
it's like
that's somebody who's naturally confident.
Yeah.
Confident with who they are.
Or can at least, or if they're not confident in themselves, that the validation that I give them makes them feel good about themselves. And realize that at least one person, the one that's there with you all the time, doesn't matter what everybody else says. It's what I say. Or it's what, somebody that loves you, all their heart, all their mind, all their soul. If they mean it, then believe them.
Somebody who's confident comes from your self-worth, right? So if this person is relying on other people telling them that they're great for their confidence, then they're not really confident, right? They're insecure. So I think you're looking for somebody who's confident in their own skin, who walks out in their sweatpants and is comfortable and says, hey, this is me, take me for what I am. So I would love to see you take that same attitude for yourself, right? Because you say that you go and you look for these people who are below your league, or maybe the people that normally other people would not find attractive. But that, I think when you say that, it's like you're saying, hey, I'm not confident in my own skills to be able to meet somebody who's my equal. And not to say that there are people that below you or above you, right? I think everybody should be on the same playing field.
I want to preface this too, that
just by saying,
right.
But
No, that I have not been actively dating for, well before COVID. I want to say about like the last 7, 8 years, I have not been pursuing. I really have just like I've really hung up, because, if I'm going to even pursue, it's like something has to start off. Like there has to be something where maybe there's a kind of spark, or there's a conversation. When I can detect, obviously, like, okay, the girl's talking to me, and I'm not really like thinking about like anything else of like, oh, I want to ask her out. But if I feel like there's something there, okay, I'll approach. But like, I'm smiling all the time. I'm always looking at people eye contact. It's like, I'm just waiting for somebody to go make the approach to me. At this point, I haven't made, and it's not like somebody approaching me, like ask me out, just like approaching just to go and talk. And if there's anything that kind of comes off of it that feels like, okay, there's more to this, then let's see what happens. But I mean, at that point, I stopped chasing. That was one of the best things I ever did, because that was what's also was always frustrating me the most, because I was chasing for that dream, chasing for that fantasy. And that part just screwed me up, because I was just, it was a point where before I met you, I was chasing so bad when I was, coming out of college in my first job, and got screwed over so many times by girls that just kind of like manipulated and put a different idea on me. And, I went to therapy for 6 months. I need to get my head straight, because I was like really screwed. I felt bashed. I was like, man, like you shot at my ego. Right. So, now I know I feel confident in terms of like, I've lost a lot of weight. I improved myself. That was one of the things I had to do first and foremost. And I was starting in 2016. And then since then, it's like, improve myself, make myself a better person in terms of like taking care of myself, learning and reading a lot of books. Like I've done so much audiobooks and so much reading and so much just from this program of research, just to understand myself better and understand, and also kind of like understand what I went through. It was a lot of reflection. I've taken a time for that. And I think when I started the program 2 years ago and I changed this program from what it was, that was the one thing I did, was that I did take time to reflect. I took a lot of time to just start understanding where I'm at right now and what I offer. So it's not like I have the best version of myself now. And I can see that at least in body language, people don't look at me like they used to before with like some kind of a repulsion, because I was overweight, and I can almost tell, like you could tell something was just not right there. But people can see that, obviously I get more smiles from women than I ever did before. But the other part is like, you can also see the women that just by looking. And I'm not like, glancing, like looking up and down kind of stuff. It's just like, you can just tell, like, I'm just waiting for some girl just to kind of give a signal that says, okay, should I say something more? Is there something more there? But until then, I've taken time not to.
You're putting a little bit too much weight on looks, right? Because what you just said there is really important. You've read a lot of books. You've improved yourself. You are a great listener. You're a very good speaker. You're a good listener. This is what people look for in a partner, right? And to be totally honest, nobody's happy with the way that they look, right? Even the most beautiful people on the planet are insecure about the way they look.
Oh, yeah.
They have surgeries, they do plastic surgery. So looks obviously are important in initial attraction, but honestly, once you get to like 70, 80, everybody looks terrible, right? So,
but you know what, Eddie? Mark, one other thing I was going to make mention of too, because you can relate to this, because we did the conferences for where we worked at full time. You at one point you were doing quite a few shows regularly, and the networking that we did, and I know that you and I got those chances myself. That because we were meeting people from all around the country, we met some very desirable, very attractive, very like just women that were just, amazing. So like might have felt a little out of our league in some cases, you could say. But like for me, I know that I networked really well. And I remember there were some points where like, I would even get told, man, you probably could have taken her upstairs because I was doing so well. Either it was either in a lobby or at a club, and everything was just relaxed. And just like the conversation, like me just talking shop, so comfortable in that atmosphere. You're the same way. I know that you did well in those scenarios as well without going into details. I know you did. I know the stories. But what about that part? Like the thing is something different when you know that you're around people that like, you know, a different scenario, you could see something much more serious with them.
I think so. I think it's if you're in your element. I think that's why I said if the club isn't your vibe, right? Then go somewhere that is. For example, if you went to a radio convention or a podcast convention like we used to go to,
yeah,
you're in your element. You're comfortable. You're talking. Your guard is down, right? Your wall is down a little bit, and it's easier for somebody to get into and connect with you. Whereas if you go to an environment where it's very competitive and you're at a bar and there's a lot of people, then your guard is up, and this is not where I want to be. So I'm a little bit protected. So I think it definitely plays into the kind of people that you meet who have similar interests, the kind of conversations that you have, because it's more about, hey, let's talk about this thing that we're doing instead of let me buy you a drink and let me have a chance to talk to you for 10 minutes. That feels very transactional. If you're doing something that you're both enjoying, that doesn't feel transactional. It's just two people enjoying something.
But now I'm at the point where I feel like when I see a girl that, you know, that appeals to me, I'm always thinking about, okay, how much is it going to cost me to go ahead and take her out and go through? I mean, that's the thing I always constantly think about. I mean, I was just thinking about the other day. I was watching football with the guys. You know, I got a watch party of fans that we all watch the same team together. And, you know, we're at Twin Peaks. So it's like one of those like bars, like a Hooters, whatever. It's one of those novelty, that kind of places where the girls are all dressed in some kind of outfit. Well, there was a guy and girl that were going into the restaurant, and we're outside watching, and we could see people coming in. And somebody made a comment. I was like, well, it's like, I made the whole comment. And I don't make this joke all the time. I'm like, oh, you know, if you see a girl like that, I'm not looking at that because I'm looking at I'll say it's like my little coin bag, like just like, you know, the old days. Or here's my little bag of like all my shekels, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't have anything in there. Like, no, I'm poor. So it's like I can't afford to even think about certain girls. But that's something I feel like that's happening now. It's like, okay, you want to take the chance? What girl's going to go and say, hey, let's go to the park. Let's go to, you know, let's go window shopping, or let's go like to a green market, whatever it is. Something that's just simple that, you know, it's just like, okay, you're there just to spend time with each other. Versus those that say, well, you need to show me an experience. We need to go do this and this and this and this. Because even if you're not getting anything out of it, it's like the girl's going to say, well, he did all this for me. It's like this experience. So it's like, you know, the focus is wrong.
Well, I think I think then you're looking at the wrong kind of person, right? Because I think that I've talked to many, many people, many women that would rather go for a walk, right? Rather do like a cheap coffee date. Because really, if you think about it, the first date is really just to check. This is just to check if this person is normal, or are they a serial killer? Are they a weirdo? So if you actually go to a dinner, if you go to drinks, then that's a big time commitment. And if you really, I'm sure you've been on dates where you sit down the first 5 minutes, you're like, oh, I got to get out of here. And now I got to sit at dinner for an hour and a half with this person that I already can't stand. So that's a terrible idea. So I think having a walk around, going to a coffee, doing something really cheap for the first date is actually totally manageable, as long as you just say casually, hey, let's go for a walk. I just want to get to know you and talk and see if this is a match, right? If somebody's telling you, hey, I need you to buy me dinner or buy me drinks, then that's a red flag, right? That should be a red flag immediately, that this person really is not interested in getting to know me. They're just here for the same old dating experience, which is clearly what you're not looking for, right?
I got to ask you this, because what you're just saying right there is the idea is to go do. Very easy to go ahead and find those kind of places to go to. And obviously where you live, okay, you know, you've lived in South America, you lived in Europe, you lived in Central America, correct? I don't know. I forget if you lived in Asia at some point. I think you did, right?
No.
Oh. But the thing is that in different continents and different areas, where you are now, a lot of cafes, a lot of shops, a lot of things you can do during the day. And again, the women that you meet and interact with, and they could be from other parts of the world visiting or being tourists, but you could tell there's a difference between what you've met internationally and what you could do. It's much easier to create that atmosphere, or for the atmosphere to go ahead and play for you, than it ever was in America.
Probably. I think when I lived in Miami, you have to get everywhere by driving. You got to drive everywhere. There's not really a walking area. There's some areas that you could go to, like Brickell or some places where you can.
They're trying to make it more like that now. That and Wynwood, they're definitely building all that up to make it more like a regular city that's got walking and less of the transit stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely agree that there are some places that it's easier to have dates in the park or whatever, but there's always options, right? You have beaches, right? You can go to the beach. If you don't want to go to the beach, you could go to the Everglades. I mean, that's a little wild, but there's always an option. If you have mutual interests, right? Yeah. Then whatever you discuss on the apps, you like ceramics, great. Let's go to a workshop or something. And even if you're spending money on stuff that you like to do. And if you like to do it and the other person likes to do it, chances are that's a good match. If you go do something that you like to do and they don't like it, well, maybe that's a sign that this isn't going to work, right? So right. I think if you think about what you said, right, you immediately start thinking about, okay, how much am I going to have to drop on this person to take them out on a date? If you had a friend come into town and they said, hey, let's go for a beer, you don't think twice about, oh, okay, I'll treat you to a beer. I'll buy you a burger. Right. Let's go. It's on me. It's on me this time. So, right, I think it's important to switch your thinking sometimes and say, you know what, I'm not going out on this date just to go out on a date and have dinner with this attractive person. I like this person. I want to get to know this person. You know what? I'm going to treat them to a burger because they're worth it to me, right? I think that's the mentality that you have to switch. Because then it doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like a transaction. You're just like, I'm treating a friend, and you know what? Maybe next time they'll treat me back, and it'll be great.
The last few dates that I even had, they were like that, where it's like there was nothing to lose. It's like, okay, I'm not losing anything out of this, but but it's always the part where what I see online, what I see on social media, what I see of people that tell me, a regular basis, but what I read. I feel like that's just becoming more of a thing. The other thing, too, I remember was that from dating, it was always about, even with the dating apps, I can't tell how many times I had to go drive to someone because there was never anybody where I lived in West Palm Beach. It's always go to Fort Lauderdale. Go to Miami. Hey, you know what's funny? When we worked at Fort Lauderdale, I had better reaction and I had much more dating going on down there than I had up here. I don't know what it was about it, but I always felt like I had to go somewhere else to find what I'm looking for. Or even if it was here, it was like going somewhere else. But it's like, I don't know if it's just where I'm at, where it's like, it also doesn't help that where I'm at now, it's like there is, again, like you said, I'm not that far from where you lived, where it's very materialistic, cloud chasing, status seeking. And people just feel like there's you got to like be seen with the right people. And it's like, it's not even a matter of like what your real preference is. It's like, it's all about aesthetics, all about the optics. And I know if I went somewhere else that I would feel like, okay, I'm going to find somebody better, because I always felt like in other areas, like if it was California, everybody's all nice. It's like really easy to go and approach somebody there. Or in New York, I always felt like it was very easy to go and approach and talk to people just because, people were just very sociable. But it's like down here, women can feel like they can wear whatever they want. They can feel comfortable like in their skin. They feel like they can go ahead and demand what they want. So, like, I get shut out of that conversation.
Well, do you think when you went to California, when you went to New York, you were there, it was easier to approach women because you had nothing to lose, right? Yeah. You were there for a couple days. You were going back home, so who cares, right? If I go talk to this person, I get rejected, big deal. I'm never going to see him again. So if you had that same attitude where you lived, then maybe things would be different. I think if I remember my biggest failures when I was dating is when I would go out on dates and I would try to be the person that I thought my date wanted me to be. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So you change yourself. You start to agree with what they say, even though you really don't agree with it. You try to kind of mold yourself into like the image that you think this person wants.
Yeah.
And the times that I had the most success with dating was when, just like you in California, New York, when I just went in with nothing to lose. Who cares? I'm going to be me. I'm going to show them who I am. If they like it, great. That's something that could be born here. If they don't like it, at least I knew right away, and I'm not wasting my time or their time, right? So I think that I don't see anything wrong with going somewhere else to find somebody if you feel like you're going to have better success, or maybe you feel like you identify with a certain culture a little bit more, right? That's totally normal. Yeah, I think it's the attitude of like having nothing to lose is the best way to go into these things, because then you're really yourself. Your wall is down. You're not trying to please these people. You're just saying, hey, this is me. What do you think?
Yeah. I agree with that part. Trying to be something that you're not. I've done that so many times.
Yeah.
But, it's like now, I honestly feel like it. Today, it's made much different. And this is one of the things I wanted to bring up in the initial onset of the show, is that, we're both at the point where, I don't know if you're single right now or if you're with anybody at the moment, but like for some reason, we're both not married. I don't know. We neither of us have children, I believe. We're at the point where, like, okay, traditionally, we would have been at some point where we would have at least gone through the having a long sustaining relationship with somebody that we were with, and maybe there was something more to it. But, right now, we have to go with the fact that, okay, I'm not dating somebody older. That's a fact for me. It's always going to be somebody younger, but probably not so young that it's like going to be too much there. I think 23, 24 is about as young as I think I'll ever be, that I know I could probably go ahead and possibly be with. That's in my opinion. But today, I feel like the modern dating and marriage, there is the power imbalance that women can leverage, and they've been taught to leverage their value to extract resources and commitment. So, like, women have the power in this whole thing. And it still should be like that, I understand, but like there's a part where I think women find there's an agenda they can find themselves in. They can do that. That their beauty and charm, they realize it's almost like a value to it. And it's like, doesn't matter what the other guy does. What the guy does is like, there's nothing that compares to what that woman has in terms of the beauty, because they can feel like, well, that's what they offer. And there's nothing else they offer. And that's the part you got to look at too. It's like, okay, well, there's women that are young and beautiful, but like, there's nothing charming about them, nothing that's, endearing or likable. I can't say how many girls I've met that have been, they're a bit vain about themselves, and they treat people like shit because they feel like, well, they're pretty. They got pretty privilege. They can do that.
Well, I think, those are the people that you clearly don't want, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of more of those out there than the ones that I'm looking for.
Yeah, so let those people be whatever they need to be in that moment, right? I think, again, you're talking about 23, 24, that's really young, right?
Yeah.
Those are the years to be vain and pretty and
oh, yeah.
And fuck up. So they're just living the life that everybody lives, right?
But it's also like they're a little more willing to go out with somebody older. If you ever notice, like that's also a kind of a common thing. So like they're susceptible to somebody older because of what they could look for in terms of maturity, because they've already dated a little bit after a while, and they're always saying to themselves, well, they're not finding anybody good right now of the current pool of guys that are around them the same age. So they look for somebody younger. So they want to look for somebody in their 40s, they can do that.
I've had relationships with large age gaps, and I think it sometimes it can work, sometimes it's great, but other times it's it's hard. I mean, if you're a man in your 40s, what are you going to talk to about with a woman in her 20s? There's not a lot of shared life experience there, right? I mean, sometimes it could work, but ultimately, large age gaps tend to shift, like you've talked about. They tend to shift the power dynamics, right? Because the person that's older, that has wealth, that is established, is now kind of helping this younger person. That's the old sugar daddy dynamic, right? So if that's something you're looking for, go for it. Right? I have no problem with people who have this arrangement. But,
right, but I also want to make this point that this is not just for you and me. I'm also trying to make this out as a larger discussion to the folks listening in.
Totally.
But the thing to you is this.
Yeah.
I think you could agree with this, that as guys, we are much more pliable. We are much more open and much more, we have a broader scope of the kind of woman we would want to be with, right? There's a lot of women that, maybe not every guy will feel the same way, but like there's a lot of women I would be attracted to. A lot more than anybody would ever imagine, because I'm much more open, much more accepting. That's my thing. But these days, women, I feel like they've been kind of taught to feel like, okay, well, they have to have certain things. They want an alpha male. They want a guy with good genes, provider type, and they want someone that has, again, like you said, 6-pack, abs. They want 6-figure income, and they want a guy that just has, they're enjoyable in bed, in the bedroom, things like that. So like, there's a thought process of like, only a certain percentage of guys that could actually fit that part. So if every girl's going to look for their dream guy, there are very few of those. Those guys are vain, and they also know their value, so they don't even care about any commitment relationship. But these women are delusional, thinking they're going to get a commitment relationship and hold on to a guy like that. But there's a lot more guys like us, but women don't look at scoping around and seeing there's a lot of guys available, because they're just shutting them out because they're thinking they just need to go for the highest of the tree.
I think you're still thinking about things as a very transactional thing, right? Like, what's the happiest relationship that you've experienced? Do you have friends who are married or in a really happy relationship? What does that look like? Can you think of one?
No, because every relationship I already know is like, there's ups and downs with them. I mean, I have enough family members that have gone through divorce or have gone through relationships where kind of like strained a bit. In my parents' marriage, it was never perfect, but they, if there were arguments, they would find their way to get past it. They were going to get across. And, it's like, we already know that a good relationship is going to have different swings, and you learn how to go ahead and manage those. That's the other part too. How many people are willing to go ahead and stick around through all that to get back to where things get good again?
Yes.
No one has patience.
This is a really, really good point, because in a really good relationship, there's going to be times where you can't stand the sight of your partner. Yeah. Like, you're so fed up with them, you're so angry with them that you don't even want to look at them. But that doesn't mean you don't love them. That doesn't mean you don't care about them. That doesn't mean that the relationship is not worth staying together just because you have a fight, right? You fight with your brothers and sisters all the time. Right. It doesn't mean you can't stand it. So you're right. You do have to find somebody that's worth sticking. And if you chase these people who just want this kind of transactional, what can you give me? What can you provide for me? Then I don't think those are the people that are going to stick around, right? Because it's not transactional. It's like, there are ups and downs in life, and there's times when you're going to be broke, you're going to be rock bottom. And then there are times when your partner is going to be rock bottom and broke, and you're going to need to support yourself, and you want somebody there that's going to be there the whole time. And this is why you've got to find somebody that with similar interest, who's not looking for there's a savior, right? The savior complex that people have when they go to find these sugar babies, or these like exchange mail order brides. What are they called?
Right. Well, or like there's the passport bros. Those are the ones that go out to go seeking the women that are like to marry and this and that. Yeah.
These passport bros, they go to these different countries because they think, okay, I'm going to stand out here. I'm going to be different. I'm going to get the attention because I'm not the norm, right? This is what you want. You want to stand out because it's like that pickup artist thing where he was like peacocking, right? Yeah. So this is why you go to a different country, because, hey, look, I look different than everybody else. I'm going to get attention. And you do get attention. You do get more attention, sure, because you're different. You get that initial rush of attention. Yeah. But ultimately, whether it's a month in, 2 months in, 3 months in, you get used to it, right? You get complacent. It's like if you eat the same meal every day, it's not the same. It's not as good as it was 2 months in, right? So all those cracks start to show, and things won't work out, because people are people everywhere. You could be different and exotic in the first month, but after a year, you're just a regular old person, right? With the same issues that everybody else has.
So we're getting up on an hour. We're going to go ahead. I'll go and wrap things up for things here. But in terms of, we're going to get into the closing statements here. One of the other areas I always got to think about as well is the fact that because it was always like, okay, if you're going to be with somebody, you don't want to just kind of consider, okay, this is just someone I'm going to go be with for a while. You want to think about the fact that, okay, what kind of life do you see with them? And down the line, you would think maybe marriage is going to be in the cards. But you have to think about the fact that, more than many times, I've seen too many people that I knew or that I've known as friends or even family, where like the effort of having that honeymoon phase, that love that you have for each other, and keeping yourself together and maintaining who you are in terms of your career, in terms of your lifestyle, in terms of taking care of yourself, being the same person that you fell in love with. That's what I would hope for. That, a good relationship is that's what happens. You have somebody that's going to be in your life that always has the way to push your button, knows what it is that makes you give them a reason why they fell in love with you in the first place and why you're with them forever. That's the most important. And there's always going to be something there. I think that's what everybody has. They can know what it is. But how many people now, they let themselves go? Once the marriage happens, it's like, okay, things change, complacency, and the effort goes away. And people don't realize they need to go ahead and keep up the same appearance, keep up the same method, the same everything. The endurance has to go along. You have to sustain who you were in the first place and never lose yourselves, because that's where the relationship goes down south. That's where marriages are risky, because if you don't find the right person, then what happens? You lose half of who you are. You are, put in a bad spot, because for guys, they lose almost everything in a marriage when a woman just only benefits from it. So like, it's just not that easy anymore. I mean, if you took away the penalties that were put into a marriage and what a woman can gain from it, then tell me how people would go and get married. No one will get married. But like for women, there is the benefit of that. And because they feel like if there's still an inherent value to their beauty and to their youth and who they are, they're willing to go and maintain and keep that up for the next person that comes along. But that can also mean like, they're not going to do that for just anybody, and just because they found someone in their life. People don't take the time to go ahead and continue to be who they are. They won't do that anymore. Maybe there still are people out there. I don't want to be completely cynical or overly critical, because I am on this program and I do that myself. But anyway, I'll leave you to what you say about this overall. What do you say?
I think it goes back to what we were saying. I think when you start a relationship, you are putting your best foot forward, right? So sure, you're working out more, you're taking care of your appearance more, but as you get more comfortable, you fall back into who you really are, right? So I think it's really important to understand who you are and focus on not putting on that first initial. You're going to do it anyways, right? Because you do want to impress your person, but that way, when you fall back 3 months, 4 months into the relationship, everybody's going to gain weight. If a woman has a child, her body's going to change, right? As men get older, our bodies change. A change in appearance is natural, right? It's part of life. But you shouldn't focus on, okay, don't change your appearance because then I'm going to love you less. It's like, hey, I love you for who you are. And I think if you
fall off the wagon a little bit, just get yourself back on. That's the thing, is like, sometimes you can let yourself go a while, but I think that's one thing where, okay, things happen in our lives, but like, try to keep ourselves back to like, just remember the things that brought you together and find a way to keep some of those things there.
You're supporting each other, right? So if you gain some weight, or if you let yourself go for a while, you wouldn't want somebody to come and tell you, hey, you're letting yourself go, get in shape. I don't like this. I don't want you like this. You want somebody to say, hey, I've noticed that you've put on some weight. Are you struggling? Do you need help? I'm worried about your health. I want you to be with me for a long time. Stuff like that, right? So, and
then also offer how to help and be a part of the change, and don't just say it. Like, just be there for them. Correct?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you would want somebody to be there for you too. Because inevitably it's going to happen, right? Your partner's going to have a low time. You're going to have a low time. You want to give them the same respect and love that you would want back, because that's what you want in a relationship, right? You want somebody to support you.
The one thing I always know, but I'll tell you, when I've ever done anything on the dating apps, and if it wasn't anything where like I was talking to somebody younger, maybe it wasn't going to be necessarily where I'm looking for something for them. Because honestly, on those sugar daddy sites, it wasn't like I was necessarily looking for anything for myself. What I was looking for is that maybe I could go and make some change for some of these girls just to let them know that they have a chance to be with somebody. They don't have to necessarily do this themselves. Like in some ways, I was just trying to advocate for them. Because what was nice to do on those sites was if a woman didn't feel validated, didn't feel good about themselves, they felt like, look at what they have to go and do for themselves to boost them up, make them feel prettier, make them feel better about themselves. I could know there was appreciation for that. That was something I like to do. I always like to go and help people feel better about themselves. And that's always been my first impressions, that I always like to make somebody feel better than they are. So I'm always wanting to go and push somebody up. At the detriment of me, because I'm not going to, put myself at that level. I think I always feel like I'm a better person to myself when I give back to others. When I'm more selfless and I'm giving more to people of who I am and trying to make them feel better about themselves and see a better version of themselves. The stuff I won't do for myself, I'll do for others, thinking hopefully maybe we'll get paid back for it someday.
I think that's great, and that's a great quality to wanting to help others, and it's very selfless. But I think you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, right? You're doing it because you don't, when you go on these sugar daddy sites, you're helping others, sure. But then afterwards, it makes you feel like shit, right? Because you feel like you're being taken advantage of. You feel like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? There's always regret afterwards. So it would be much better if you could have this giving attitude to somebody who actually really appreciated it and who could give it back to you, right? You could that way give as much as you want without having to worry about, okay, well, what am I going to get in return, right? Because then it's more genuine. It feels better, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you give somebody a Christmas, it feels better.
We're going to leave it there. There's more to it. But like I said, yeah, I understand that, this is where living here all my life and just knowing that through all my experiences, my own personal thought process is that, there's a lot of transaction to just trying to be in a relationship these days. But I don't want to give out and rule out hope that I can find somebody that's not like that. But I feel like that there's a lot of outside things that are causing that to be much more the norm than it is it's much more common than it was just secondhand. Like it was, now I think it's just much more common. I think it's just acceptable now when it used to be not. I don't know. That's just my thought about it. Well, anyway, Mark, thanks for being on with me. I appreciate it. And there's a lot to come out of this. Like I said, I want to encourage the audience out there that if you got anything out of this conversation, if you listen to us on the YouTube channel, you listen to us on the podcast, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com, or just go look for the YouTube feed and then go look for this episode and put comments in. As many as you want, because I want to read them back. And if I can't, I'll get Mark back. He'll come on to go ahead and take some of the comments, and we'll go ahead and weigh those and see how people are going to think about this, because I'm curious what people are going to say about it and what's the takeaway, because that'll be really interesting. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for being on. And, for those of you people out there that maybe don't feel the same way about, what we're talking about here, that maybe just want to continue to do what you want to do. And maybe you want to just still, screw the relationships. I'll just continue to be depraved and debaucherous.